This is a really interesting new patient topic. These are new patients that are commonly walking in your office and walking right out of your office, and you don't even know it. And what that is the guests of your patients. There's a certain, remember, every person you look at, whether it's in the supermarket, the drugstore, the gas station, everybody, they all fit into the S curve of economics. That's the first thing that you have to realize. What does that mean? That means 8% of those people are going to be looking for a chiropractor within the next year. Okay, fine, but we can't wait a year, and it's too small of a number. Number two, so that's 8%. So that leaves 92%. Remember, and out of that 92%, 25% of those people do not have a chiropractic gateway problem. They do not. Back pain, neck pain, arthritis, joint pain, they do not. What does that mean? It means you leave them alone. You don't waste your time with them. What else does that mean? Well, if you subtracted the 25% from the 92%, you're up around 68% of the population that have a chiropractic problem to some degree. And again, how do we know this? And again, if you can't see what I'm getting ready to share with you, you're just not going to see the abundance of new patients that are out there. And so how do we know that there's so many people, 68%, essentially 68% of the population is a potential to go to chiropractor? Well, we know the stats. That we know the second leading cause of going to a general practitioner is back pain. Take all the general practitioners in your geographic radius of draw. The second reason they're getting new patients, all these new patients are driving right by your office going to the local GP. That's the second leading cause that they get new patients. Okay? Thank you, bad chiropractic marketing for 130 years. And then same with hospitalizations. The number one reason people go and stay in hospitals, pregnancy, birth. Number two is back pain. So you got all these people every day going to the emergency room with back pain. And then we go to the workers' compensation injuries. The number one injury is the connective tissue disorder, like carpal tunnel, things is like that, the repetitive injury. And then, of course, that's chiropractic. But number two is back pain. So, and then you look at arthritis. You go 1 in 5 people have arthritis, joint pain. See, so it's massive. So you got this massive amount of people that have back pain, neck pain, headaches, joint pain to some degree. And then when you look at that crowd, about 10% of them, it's pretty high. About 10% high meaning need. There's a pretty high need. 10%, it's much lower need. And then there's the 80% in the middle. If you can't see that picture, you're going to have a difficult time getting new patients. See, when I go to the grocery store, that's what I see. I see new patients everywhere. So what's the formula? See, remember that you got to know the formula to reach those patients. Now, I'm not going to go into it as much right now. I've gone, when we go into new patient education, a new patient, we do it a lot. But so what's my point? My point is when your patients come in, oftentimes a lot of your patients come in with a guest, their spouse. A lot of times it's the spouse or the kids or a friend, okay? Which is great because remember, one of the first things you look at when you target a market, when you target new patients, is you target circle of influence. Because you're already fulfilling several functions. Number one, there's already a higher degree of trust to some degree. What does that mean? Their trust and confidence in that person with you is already naturally higher, and their defenses and resistance are already lower. So you're already one up. And remember the formula. Need equals money times time divided by trust. That's the new patient formula. Okay? So we've already, to some degree, got the trust category. And then also, it's real easy to see if they have a problem or not. It's so easy for me to talk to a patient about their spouse to see if their spouse not only has a gateway problem, Do they have back pain, neck pain, arthritis, joint pain? Okay. Any old past injuries or auto accidents. That's like classic right there. When you ask those 6 questions to anybody, you got a high probability of a yes. Very high, especially if that person's over, well, especially if they're over 50. But if they're over 30, it's pretty high. It's real high over 50. So, and the person you're talking to, because it's a high circle of influence, they will typically know to some degree how much that problem is bothering the patient, how much the ADLs are being affected to some degree, not real deep. But a spouse will know, especially the woman on a man. The woman will know a hell of a lot more about the man's problems than a man will about a woman. That's just true. And of course, there's higher probability factors of will they'll come in. A woman has a much higher likelihood of spending time or money to come in. They go see the doctor more and they have more problems. That's a statistical fact. That's not my opinion. So I already know I have a better chance with a woman. I have a better chance with a spouse that's a woman, see? And I also know I have a much better chance if they're 30, 40, especially if they go 40 or 50. See, I've got an unbelievable high probability patient. If they're 50 years old plus and they're the spouse, mother, father, or brother, sister, especially if it's the woman, I've got a real high. I just have to know what to say. That's what okay? And that's called educational sales. Okay, so what I have to do for that target market. So if I've got all these people coming through. I mean, if you looked at the last month and you figured out how many guests are coming through with your patients, you probably don't even know because you let them stay in the waiting room. So you don't even know. So that's the first mistake. So there's a source of new patients that just come in routinely and it's high potential quality, high potential because of all these factors that I'm talking about. Well, we don't want to let them just walk in and walk out the door and you not even know about it. And then you go and spend money on cold call advertising. See how that doesn't make any sense at all? So you can do something for free that has a higher quality versus not do something for free with higher quality and then go spend money with lower quality. How much sense does that make? It doesn't. So, and it depending on how big your practice is on how many guests come through. I mean, geez, we routinely, it was pretty rare that we had a day go by, especially the main patient visit days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It was pretty rare that we had a day go by that we did not have patients come through with, their spouse, their brother, sister, or their kids, or friends. Very rare, very rare. Well, guess what? All of these are potential new patients. They're all on the S curve somewhere, all on the S curve. You've got to remember the vast majority of people that have all these gateways, back pain, neck pain, joint pain, old auto accidents, old injuries, all these neuromusculoskeletal, minor trauma, major trauma, you got to remember. And what's the other thing we know? Medication. What's the number one medication? Excuse me, that people are consuming? NSAIDs. Well, what are NSAIDs for? Joint inflammation. All of this is chiropractic. All of this is neuromusculoskeletal chiropractic. So that's how big the market is. The question is how to tap into it because they're not looking for chiropractors. So what does that mean? You have to know how to establish need. That's what it means. You have to know how to establish need, minimize the obstacle of money and time. You're already in the trust factor. It's already done for you. That's what you have to know how to do. And you got a new patient. That's exactly what happens. So that's what we're going to go through today. So this is how it works. And let's walk through what are the system. And believe me, it's a system. And you have to train on it. And you do have to be somewhat good at it. And there's certainly some things that you cannot do. You know, there's some things that you'll do through ignorance that will destroy it. So, I mean, there's some things you just have to learn not to say that will destroy a potential new patient from coming in. And the number one is, I can help you. And you got to learn why. You got to learn why. And that's the sales process. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and walk through how to get these patients. Are you going to get all of them? No. But I tell you what, you'll get 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, depending on how big your practice is and how many people are coming through your office. That's how many you'll get as a patient. I mean, you should pretty much get 1 a week, to be honest with you. 1 a week coming through. Yeah, that's 4 new patients right there, depending on what your case average is. If it's $1,000, $2,000, you just made $12,000, $24,000. And remember, it goes from there. Because remember, as soon as we get a patient, we have the system involved in the next 30 days. Remember, what happens in 30 days? We're going after that person's spouse, children, mother, father, brother, sister. Remember, in 30 days, we're going after them 5 times for those people. We're going to filter them out and go after those in 5. So we're going to get another patient. That's why when I always got 1 patient, it was never 1 patient. But if you're not thinking like that, if you just think, oh, I got a new patient, that's it, and you got blinders on, you're not even thinking of the new patients that you can get from that new patient, you'll never access the largest part of the market, which is the 92%. You will constantly be stuck with the 8% in your geographic radius of draw divided by the other chiropractors. That's what will happen. And that's what does happen when chiropractors don't know this. And that's why they typically suffer with new patients, patient visits, etc. That's why. When there's all these new patients going by their office and in and out of their office every day, they don't even see it. There you go. Okay, so let's go ahead and walk through this.